Hello everybody, I'd just like to preface this by saying there have been quite a few technical difficulties in the making of this episode, and this really will be a labor of love. I am here for you AP World students who are struggling, and I'm looking out for you. So, let's talk about Chapter 9, which is early India, or, like Middle Ages India. So, so in the history of the world, there's when there's trade, there's a cultural diffusion stuff goes on, which is the transmission of one culture to another, because two peoples are interacting peacefully for a long time. And so this happens in India, because some of the main Silk Roads go from India through Iran to the west. So one of the countries that capitalizes on that after the fall of the Mauryans is the Kushan Kingdom of India. So that's like northwest India, more around the Indus, part of what's now Pakistan too. So after they collapse, they are replaced by another kingdom called the Guptans, and it's the next kind of dynasty of India. So just like the Mauryans were started by Chandragupta Maurya, the Guptans are started by Chandragupta. So it's same name, totally unrelated, just like in Indian history, Mahatma Gandhi and Indira Gandhi are totally unrelated as well. But, yeah, so you have the Guptans, and the Guptans are extremely advanced. You have a lot of cool technological stuff going, beautiful architecture, government run, say, agriculture and stuff like that, and it runs really well. The dynasty doesn't last very long, but while it is around, it's a golden age for India. During this time, they're trading extensively with their neighbors, and a religious shift kind of happens in India. So remember, we talked about a little bit earlier, India under the Mauryans, especially past Ashoka, moved from Brahmanism to more Buddhism as a way of thought. But under the Guptans, as they traded with, you have China here, Korea, and Japan. Well, they trade more with China, but here, I'll just say. So, as Indian traders and Chinese traders are going place to place, Buddhism spreads to China, Korea, and Japan. And so the way to remember the two different types of Buddhism, it's something my pre-AP World teacher taught me. Thank you, Miss Dillon. Let me show you. So you have two types of Buddhism that come from cultural diffusion. You have Mahayana in the north, and the way to remember that is China to Korea to Japan makes an M. And Mahayana is contrasted by Theravada, which is the Buddhism that pops up in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, those types of countries. And so the difference between them is Mahayana takes on some of the, push back. Remember, China in world history has a very strong culture, and foreign influences on China kind of get Chinified. Well, the proper term is Sinicized, but gets Chinified in coming into China. So, Buddhism, when it comes into China, kind of takes on some Chinese characteristics. This Mahayana Buddhism is to differentiate this new type of Buddhism. And some of the stuff about it is, Siddhartha Gautama, when he started Buddhism, it wasn't necessarily religion, it was more a way of thinking. You can overcome suffering and achieve nirvana by meditating and, getting past desire and stuff like that. But when it goes to China, it kind of takes on some more religious qualities. They treat the Buddha as a god, stuff like that, and more of it's a closer heaven and salvation type stuff. So that's Mahayana, it's more religious. And in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, those places have Theravada Buddhism, which is much more close to the original Buddhism of Siddhartha Gautama. So more of a way of thinking, personal behavior, code of ethics type stuff. Yeah, so that's under the Guptans. And actually, while Buddhism is spreading outside of India, it's kind of failing within India. Well, not failing, but receding. Because around this time, Brahmanism is shifting into, and remember, Brahmanism was the religion of the Aryan conquerors of India. So it shifts to being a more widely held religion. So kind of what I mean is it goes from being an elite religion to everybody can partake in the new development, which is called Hinduism. And so Hinduism spreads throughout India, and kind of pushes Buddhism out. And, of course, now today Hinduism is the #1 religion of India, and it's extremely influential in all spheres of Indian life. Okay, but then the Gupta dynasty comes to an end, and the Golden Age ends with it. And then India begins to experience some outside invasions that they will deal with for, like a millennium. So the first, so remember, Islam is now like this. And let's use our thinking caps, folks. Oh, they've also still got part of Spain. So there are mountains here, and there are really tall mountains here, like Mount Everest. So, and India is very fertile and stuff like that. So the Islamic invasion's kind of next logical move is to go into India. So one of the big guys who does that is Mahmud of Ghazni, Ghazi, pardon. And past that, he sets up the Sultanate of Delhi. And then another big one that comes is, so for some background, we have the Mongols take over everything, basically everything in Asia. And that centralized Khanate doesn't last very long, but what follows it are more localized people who style themselves after the Mongols. And the biggest example of this is Timur the Lame, Tamerlane. There are lots of different ways to say his name. And so the empire of Timur is here. So he himself, I believe, is Uzbek. But he claims descent from Genghis Khan. So, the Timurid Empire, as it's called, is like this. See? And they take over part of India. And yeah. And they also look up the Timurids fighting the Ottomans. There's some very cool battles. And after Timur the Lame beats the Ottoman Sultan, he brings him back to his capital Samarkand in a cage and keeps him there for 2 years. Not good stuff for the Ottomans. So one of the big things about Tamerlane is, the Mongols had been shamanist, but he combines Mongol conquest, the whole nomadic conquest thing, with Islam. So now he's doing this as a holy war, waging jihad, and India is not majority Muslim, so he's coming to spread Islam into India. So as you have the successor states to the Timurids and to Mahmud of Ghazni, you have a kind of contrast in the Indian society between some of the Muslim ruling elites and the Hindu populace, and a lot of stuff has to come from that. Purdah, keeping women separate from men, and some Indian cultural developments to deal with having sections being run by a Muslim minority. So that will lead us into some later Indian history, say the Mughals, who are also Muslims ruling in a largely Hindu minority, and other similar things. And let's see if there's anything else to hit on. And just as a quick summary for Southeast Asia, remember it's another place heavily influenced by trade. So, blah, 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 you have, so kind of interesting about Vietnam. The Vietnamese are able to defeat the Mongols when they attack in the 1200s, 1300s. So, they're able to keep nominal independence, which is pretty impressive. Not too many people beat the Mongols. And they have an empire, and they're largely Buddhist. And there's, in the Southeast Asia and then around Indonesia, Muslim traders will come down. So Indonesia right now, I believe, is the largest Muslim country in the world, even though it's separated from the rest of the Muslim world by non-Muslims. So, and just remember you have Angkor and the Khmer Empire. They build Angkor Wat and stuff like that. And that's about it for this chapter, and we're going to pick up on some cool stuff next time. Thanks again for tuning in, and see you next time.